Hello, my fellow mods, and welcome to The Perspecta. I'm your host, John O'Neill, and in association with DC Hillier and MCM Daily, we just broke further into the world of entertainment. As you can see behind me, I'm a passionate fan of AMC's show Mad Men, and it absolutely played a supporting role in my love of mid-century modern design. Although it shows so effortlessly on screen, our guest went into great detail on the process, research, logistics, budgeting, and the true storytelling necessary to deliver the atmosphere of this period masterpiece. It is obvious in learning about her experiences and interests growing up that Claudette was truly the perfect fit in this high-pressure role to create an accurate and immersive setting. We welcome you into this time-traveling conversation with Claudette Didul.
Hello. Very nice. Guys, that's awesome. I have nothing.
Yeah, and I think we're this is Greg's apartment.
I know, exactly.
I don't know if
I'm
you've seen Greg's apartment before, but he's an avid collector.
That's awesome. Yeah. Nice glass. Look
Hey,
at you.
thanks. I do. I have one set of Fred Press glasses.
Wow.
And it's not so it's funny as you begin to learn more and study more about, mid-century stuff.
Well, that's just it. Yeah.
You see similarities, and I noticed these are similar to some of the glasses
Yes, they
on
are.
Mad Men, but not exactly the same. Those were
The
like a
ones
little bit longer of a sort of an aqua strip and then a gold around the top, it seemed.
Those glasses were from a store called Amsterdam Modern. She had 100 of each color.
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah, I saw the white ones as
so
well.
White highballs, turquoise highballs, and then there were white and turquoise like rocks glasses. So I bought, I think all of them, split with the prop department so that it would be like your party glasses or like everyone would, kind of drink out of them. I couldn't tell you who the designer was on those, but my guess is they may have come from Holland because a lot of her stuff at Amsterdam Modern, she ships in and everything.
Got it.
And that was right in season 4. Just to give you kind of a quick background. Yeah. When I started, I interviewed 3 different times first with the production designer, Dan Bishop, and then with Scott Hornbacher, the producer, and then with Matthew Weiner, and then waited about a month to find out if I had the job or not. Yeah. And basically we had 6 weeks of prep.
Wow. 6 weeks.
And that's how it was. The beginning of every season, you had 6 weeks, and then you'd find out kind of what the storyline was about.
Sure.
And for me and my department, we were the only new department to the show.
Got it.
And
for season 4.
Yeah.
Got it.
There were a couple of repetitive sets. There was the Draper house, but it had all been dismantled, and then they had to rebuild it on stage.
Oh, man.
So it's like kind of making sure we had everything. So some items were rented, and they do like a production rental at the prop house. A lot of the artwork, because clearing vintage art is very tricky.
Wow. I haven't even really thought about clearances and rights and that kind of stuff either. That probably dictates a lot.
Yeah. Because you don't have the time. And so a prop house will be your best friend. Yeah. It gets harder when it's for long term. Yeah. So if you're on a show for 6 or 7 months, you need to have a substantial budget, which we never really ever had. So
that's interesting too. I feel like I've been chatting recently with a few folks on Instagram about the Eames chairs on Shark Tank, and the fact that they actually use reproductions.
Right.
And I was curious, maybe that's common, right? Are there a lot of reproductions because the budget isn't there to actually secure the rights to use specifically
No,
licensed
no,
products?
not
No, okay,
necessarily. But like, for instance, when we did Don's apartment,
yeah,
on the reverse of your image, so the three Eric Buck stools
okay,
were vintage from Virginia. I had never seen them before. And I saw them on eBay and I was like, oh, those are cool. And there were three, and there were three kids. And it
yeah,
was like, kind of
yeah,
the perfect fit and time appropriate,
yep.
and a designer I had not heard of. And they were shipped in from Virginia. Now you see them everywhere.
all over, yeah,
And so there
yeah,
are people that do believe that I bought things from Design Within Reach or Room and Board. At
sure.
one point, there was talk about making a deal with Design Within Reach, but we never got a chance to really
Pursued
pursue
that,
it.
yeah,
Time ran out, basically,
yeah,
to try to do any kind of deal. I can tell you also, like with Don's apartment, Matthew Weiner you had a question if he's involved, and he is very involved
yeah,
with
yeah.
the
That's so
look
cool.
of things. So he did not want the Eames lounge chair. So we had to
Too,
try to find,
too quintessential.
yeah. And so we had to try to find something that maybe, Don would have liked, that
Yeah,
felt manly,
yeah,
that had an ottoman.
right.
And we had two different choices from a place in Culver City, Gallery Summerlath.
Mm.
And that was the one that John Hamm chose.
Mm. Oh wow!
And
So John Hamm was included. I mean, I'm so curious about that
yeah, we had him
interplay with
sit in
some of the
it and let
actors.
him,
Yeah,
we brought it up to Matthew's office and,
yeah,
just kind of said, what are you feeling comfortable in?
yeah,
Because these are two great options. So again, when you're doing a set like that, with 6 weeks of prep for everybody,
yeah.
so that's construction and art
Right.
department. So drawings and things, Dan Bishop meeting with Matthew and stuff. So I know Dan used as an influence the New York Times design book
Oh wow!
that had some things to kind of pull from.
It was from that time period, that design book.
Yes.
Got
Yeah. And I actually, just real quick, pulled a couple
Yeah,
of books here. So this was another
incredible.
book that Dan used. It's the Interiors Book of Offices from 1960.
Wow,
And
that's cool.
we
That's
were
incredible.
questioning, like, a
Yeah,
sort of
some of the
article that
references,
felt like
absolutely.
residential. And so I don't know if you can see
Wow.
that, but
Yeah.
there's, 1955 Saarinen with Rogers.
Rogers Italian Hospital, as
Exactly.
you point
Yeah.
out the quote. Yeah,
So,
it feels like that. It's sterile. There's a little pop in there, but
yeah. So that
all
was
black and
that was
white.
all Dan,
Yeah,
like with the
sure.
psychedelic kind of wall
Yeah,
treatments and everything. And then as the season progresses and the camera gets in there
yeah.
and the setups, that's where you're like, oh my God, that wall is blank. And we need to find some
Got to
art.
put
So we
something there.
started.
Yeah.
So we did bring in art from a prop house called Art Pick, and it was a contemporary artist with a vintage abstract vibe.
Sure.
And just to continue with that, when we did the 38th floor for
Okay.
season 6, I had a whole floor. I
Wow.
needed to fill it with art. Now
Yeah,
I've already gone
that's a
through.
hard thing to do.
Yeah, and I've gone through 2 prop houses already with all the cleared period art, and I couldn't repeat art from previous episodes
Yeah.
as best as I could.
Right.
I'm sure that I did by mistake, but
I was curious just for myself, and I think some of the audience too. Can you start at what a production design team really, sort of looks like, and we can sort of fill in. It sounds like you're mostly, have had a set decorator type role previously, but how does that all sort of ladder up, just so everybody can frame,
well,
what we've gone through a little bit?
the production designers headed the overall department,
Right.
although set decorating is essentially not part of the art department, but works
Okay.
with the art department. is included, but we are responsible for our own budget.
Okay.
Same with the prop department.
And there's probably a lot of collaboration there too.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. A lot of
And
people have to agree, huh?
you do the best you can,
Yeah.
once you got the 6 weeks of prep over to get to the first episode and the permanent sets. So you're creating the permanent sets of each season.
Yeah.
As far as you know.
Yeah.
Unless the character
Until something
becomes kind of
changes.
popular and then you kind of expand.
Sure.
Swing set is what they call it, into a permanent set. But then you are also doing these other sets along the way, restaurants or hotel rooms, bars, other people's houses, apartments, that kind of thing. And so then you're down to about 8 days of prep, with each episode. So as you are working and dressing for one episode, you're starting 4 days in the pre-production script of the next episode.
Wow.
And then you 2 days later have a production meeting. So you're reading the script twice, and those can be like 4 hours in the pre-production and then 2 hours in the production meeting. Then you have to do budgets to turn in to see if you'll get that approved. You might have a tech scout to go to the locations you're doing, and you're still working on the episode that you are currently filming. So,
that is a lot of that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of going on at once. Wow.
And then you take in the fact that not everywhere is going to have the period stuff you're looking for, or it may not be available. Shopping wise, I worked a lot on the weekends. And I would go to like Old Orange, California. They had a bunch of antique malls down there that were fantastic. Or trying to get to Amsterdam Modern or NoHo Modern.
Seeing who can ship at the same time. I'm sure a couple different pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So eBay, Etsy, Craigslist.
I think that's from reading a few interviews you've had. I think that's the most, interesting maybe thing for people who are newer to mid-century modern design, right? Because that was really what we set out to do on the podcast, is just give a little ramp for folks that are getting into it for the first time. So to be clear, like, you can go out and source things for your own house the same way that Claudette did here for Mad Men. I mean, that's kind of an incredible thing to just reflect on,
Right. And the other thing is, like fabrics, and that can get tricky too. When we were on Catch Me If You Can, there was this amazing store in Burbank, and she had all this retro period fabric. So we could do like drapery in the Riverbend apartment that you mentioned. So there was vintage fabric in there, but she's out of business. By the time Mad Men started, she was gone,
Of course.
So,
and I'm sure you then, and I am curious. It seems like you've done a lot, not necessarily, specific period pieces.
Right.
But is there a tendency in your industry to get, become an expert on specific styles? Oh, interesting. Okay.
No.
So was it kind of random that you did Catch Me If You Can and Mad Men?
Very much so.
Wow. Interesting. Because from a audience's viewpoint, right? Admirer's viewpoint, it kind of seems thematic, but wow.
And Matthew and Scott Hornbacher never saw Catch Me If You Can.
No way.
So, and I think that was partially on purpose.
Yeah.
With Mad Men, we did use older movies as a reference. So, one great aspect was the Doris Day movies, especially the one with her in advertising and all the amazing colors. It was like, as I described it one time, it's like it was so powerful, it almost made your teeth vibrate because it was so incredible. Like, just the reds and the yellows and the, primary colors and beyond, when we got to 1968, on Mad Men, we used Rosemary's Baby and Midnight Cowboy. That's where you could see, payphones and the courts of like the receiver, things
Right.
that, so you were at one point asking about things, mistakes or
Oh
whatever. You
yeah,
did the
mistakes
very
is
best we
always a
could.
fun one. Yeah.
I know. I mean, because on a set, we're on stage to get camera and crew in, walls came apart. And then you had to redress those walls in a
Wow.
very short period of time,
Sure.
get all the furniture back in and the smalls and things like that.
Yeah.
Occasionally in Don's office, I think it happened once, a piece of art went back upside down.
Oh, really?
The
Okay.
abstract.
Now, I hope we're not huge, as a podcast quite
Oh
yet,
no,
but you might have a couple people going back and
yes,
looking.
I found it on a blog. There was
Oh,
someone
did you?
who
Okay.
literally broke it down shot by shot by shot.
Wow. A bunch of people now, I'm sure. I mean, even some of the Mad Men Instagram accounts that
Yeah.
post, stills and screenshots of the shows, some of those have 40, 50,000 followers. I mean,
Yes.
you still got a really engaged audience here of people that, I mean, I was revisiting it anyway. I've watched the series a few times. I'm obviously a big fan here. This was a season 7 Subway poster.
Yes. Yep.
That still had its backing that I got on eBay at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I was very, very happy with that.
We needed to get cleared from him the Bob Dylan poster
Oh, I bet.
that he
Yeah.
had done.
Milton Glaser, sure.
Yeah. Through that, I think Matthew kind of connected with him and got him to
Oh,
do the
so that
poster.
was the origin of that relationship a little bit, was,
I
potentially.
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, they may have been in touch sooner. And it was a request from Matthew to get that particular Bob Dylan poster from Milton
Yeah.
Glaser.
That one comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind too, now that we're talking about art, is the Rothko.
So that's
that
before
Bert
me.
had. That was earlier, right? But I didn't know if you happen to know how that one worked out.
Well, I believe that was a Matthew request as well for
For Bert.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that I think goes back.
I think it's pretty early in the.
Yeah, I do too. That was something that was cleared from the estate and
Oh,
a
wow.
copy was made, and every season we had to pay a certain amount of money to the estate
Yeah.
to keep it on the show. And
Sure.
once the show was over, we had to destroy it and
The
then
copy.
show
Got
proof that it was destroyed. Because we also did Jackson Pollock. And again, once that episode was over, had to be destroyed.
I mean,
So,
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we think about it. I think Greg and I most compare, I mean, a lot of things in this world to music, right? And so,
right.
We have a pretty good understanding of how music licensing works. And in advertising, I have a decent understanding of how it's used. But I don't know that I realized that prized art being included in a set would
and it's gotten
require that kind of
worse
fee.
and worse and worse.
Oh, really?
I mean, difficult.
Yeah.
Because it goes all the way down to sculptures, little objects.
Wow.
I see a little bird behind you.
Yeah. I wonder if I'm going to get in trouble here. Maybe it was strategic. One day I put it up and I shined the lights in the background and there was a shadow and I was like, the shadow's pretty cool. So I didn't purposefully,
very cool.
I didn't purposefully not include this notable bird on purpose, but now I might just leave it this way. To me, obviously I look at interior design as such a core essential part of what we try to learn about and talk about in terms of mid-century. But I think honestly the more valuable showcase is in entertainment. And I feel like that's why it will continue to be of interest. I mean, there's not a commercial lately or a TV show that is running and is popular that you don't see a few notable mid-century modern pieces, in my opinion. It's everywhere lately.
Right. But I think that has been for a long time, we just never really acknowledged it.
Sure. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, the one person who would be very interesting for you to interview is Kara Greenberg. And I don't know if you,
Yes.
okay, and her
So
book, and she, I guess, coined the phrase mid-century modern.
yes.
And I don't really know like how else to call it, but I
Right.
know,
Yeah, it was an accurate term. Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
And I know and at some point we're going to be entering the next phase, like which century of mid-century are
Right.
we going into?
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yeah.
But I think you had asked about different countries, so every country seemed to have a different version of,
Yeah, little bit of a style or definition. Yeah, I wasn't sure if specific to Mad Men, really, or Catch Me If You Can. I mean, he was Leo's in a couple different countries there, but did you have any rules about, if a piece should be American or Danish, for example, or from other countries when you were choosing different items for the set?
well, for Mad Men,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of light fixtures,
Okay.
very
Yeah. Ton of
expensive
lamps. Yeah.
desk lamps.
Yeah.
And it was more finding what's available in multitudes that is period
Yeah.
or possibly period correct. Everything that we had was vintage.
Yeah.
There was one person pointed out I think it was on a blog, that I guess I had purchased a lamp to put in the set that was only available through green stamps on the West Coast, or maybe it was
Okay.
blue stamps. And
Sure.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But working on the West Coast, it would make sense that
Sure.
mid-century style lamp was available. One thing we had to be careful of was appliances.
Yeah.
East Coast and West Coast appliances were different. West Coast has a Keith Merritt.
Interesting. Okay.
East Coast did not. So I tried to find something that was more generic, like GE
Yeah.
or Magic Chef, something that was like a bigger company. But when we got to Megan's apartment in California,
Yeah.
I could use O'Keefe and Merritt.
Got it.
But then I had to find a 36-inch size O'Keefe and Merritt stove, and most of them were 30 or 40 inches wide.
I mean,
Luckily,
I
I
think
found one
that
fit.
on in itself, right, explains and gives a good illustration of the depth that you need to go into in order to make all of this work in such a compressed time
Oh, you have
period.
no idea. A lot of times
yeah.
when everything was drawn and it was going into being built,
Yeah.
I needed to find fridges with a handle on the left side.
Yeah.
So Don's
And
apartment.
it's heavy, it's big. I mean, these are tough things to solve for.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
That refrigerator in Don's apartment was a godsend. When the Carolina's Appliances in Los Angeles found that a week before we started filming,
Wow.
because otherwise I thought there's no way I can find anything in a color big enough to look like it was a sizable fridge, not a tiny fridge, And so I started collecting appliances after that. Like, I'll just save them because I know there's going to be like another set coming up, and not only in that first episode of season 4, we had to do the commercial for the first episode.
Oh, that too.
That Glow Coat commercial, we had to create the set. That was another kitchen.
Wow.
Find the furniture of the little boy that's supposed to be behind
the handles.
Right.
Yeah.
That came from Amsterdam Modern.
Okay.
That set. And so that was a Dutch dining set. And then it airs on Don's TV. Now, thankfully, all the period TVs we found did not have to work.
Okay. There's like you can sort of overlay it. Yep.
Well, it was all put in post. And Blake McCormick, who did post-production and was a producer, did a spectacular job.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it.
I have never once questioned in all the times watching it if there was a real screen or not. It seems like it seems legitimate.
So I collected TVs whenever I saw them, and you had to be careful. Like, yes, color came in, just finding portable color TVs or the one in Megan's, like the big RCA TV that Dawn buys for her.
Yeah.
That was an add-on after we did the whole apartment, and then that was supposed to be a gift
Right.
that he buys
Right.
her. So I was
Actually,
like, oh.
that's a really good, sort of connection to a question I was really thinking a lot about, and that is, do you even in your mind, right, without saying this outwardly, do you write little stories as you're decorating about how some of the items are maybe
Yes.
acquired by the
And
characters?
usually it's just me. Like
Sure.
my
Yeah.
mind's like, well, this character, but sometimes Matthew would like ramble off things like,
Yeah.
I
A little
wanted to have like
backstory.
blah, blah, blah. So like Miss Blankenship, he
Yeah.
literally did a whole list of like,
She's a
she
character.
have
So
blah, 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 on her desk. And I went out that weekend and I was like, I'm going to find, like the seashells with like her travels to Atlantic City, the little
wow.
figurines, all that stuff that she
Yeah.
carried with her. And we
Yeah.
all, from office to office, as we go from project to project, we all
Yeah.
do little knickknacks. It's more than a coffee cup and a
Sure.
pencil holder. So that also became something that we needed to do on secretaries' desks throughout. It
Yeah.
was the phone, the typewriters, the desk lamps, and then personalizing it.
Yeah. Is that written down anywhere? Is that something where you're sort of documenting? So maybe do you get like a brief on what a character is like, and then you kind of have fun with it and run with
Sometimes,
it a little bit? Okay.
but sometimes you kind of are on your own
Yeah.
and you just had to like mass do it, like
Yeah.
let's have, it's like birthday cards. And you try to make
Yeah.
it different in each episode. You did the best you could and trying to
Yeah.
make it look a little changed. And
Yeah.
our on-set dresser, Bart Ubenthal, helped out where he tried to fluff it up and make it
Sure.
look a little bit better.
Yeah, that fine line between feeling sort of natural
Right.
and staged. We talked to our past guest Jicky about this, and she's a stylist and sort of head of content for Atomic Ranch magazine. We were just talking about different ways that you make things look natural.
Right.
I didn't actually realize that's another whole role within production design. I guess it sounds like you just described.
Well, it's just something that you hope you have the time to get
Right.
back down there
Right.
to work on it as
Got
you're doing other things, because we probably went out at least for one day for a location, either an interior or exterior. It could have been like, sometimes we use the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA. And one time we were there, I think it was 2 days of filming, and we did a restaurant, a bar, an apartment, and a hotel room
Wow.
on different floors.
Yeah.
So you're like getting it
running all
in
around.
there, trying to get it all ready.
Yeah.
And then we did bar sets quite a bit in there.
Yeah.
The lobby is where we had like cars. There was one episode, and I don't know if it was the Mustang or.
They were talking to an auto company, right? And I kind of remember seeing all the cars.
That's right.
Yep.
But then also we, around like a couple of blocks away, there's the old bank that we had used on Catch Me If You Can. That bank became the Jaguar dealership.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to track back and see that. That's so cool.
And then, the last episode of season 6, which I love, and that's one where Megan does the commercial.
Sure.
We had to empty that entire stage. So construction had to remove all the set walls. We had to get all the set dressing out so that it could have the camera pull back to everything empty and just that one set there. So there was that set that day. Early in the morning at about 4:00, we had to show up to redress an existing bar to make it look period. And that's where Dawn gets hit on by the girl, like, are you alone?
Okay.
That same day was when Peggy looks out her motel window, and sees the 2 dogs in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And one other
There's
set. So there were 4 sets that one day.
Yeah.
So we're like all part of this, but it's amazing, but it was exhausting.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I think
I
I
can't even imagine.
left early that day. I think I left at 5:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah. After 4 a.m. start? Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, it's really, it is putting it into a great deal of perspective for me. I think the way to describe it is it being so concurrent,
Mhm.
right? I mean, I had a understanding that, a lot had to happen at once in order for, to maximize the amount of film that you're getting for the set time and all that kind of good stuff. But wow, a lot of timelines overlapping in order to not only focus on what you're doing that day, but in the future too.
Right. And then keeping a budget.
Yeah.
So for every episode,
Yeah.
we had 25,000 in season 4. By the time we got to season 7, we were up to 35,000 an episode. It's not a
Wow.
lot of money, especially when you're doing period.
Yeah.
And you're, making drapes and you're reupholstering
Yeah.
and you're buying stuff
Yeah.
and renting and just trying to hopefully make it all look good. And
Yeah.
again,
Now, is that sort of ends up being a lump sum so that you could do some of the more permanent sets, or is
no,
that literally episode by episode? Okay.
episode by episode, and then you
Wow.
had to reconcile your budget within a couple of days after the episode was finished to make sure that you were on budget for accounting in case there was any overages, they could
Sure.
take care of it, and that they could pull from other departments if
Sure.
need
If
be. So
needed.
sometimes construction might be under, and they could say, we'll take 5,000 from construction and put it in a set deck,
Got it.
and math is not my forte. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, the more you describe it too, the more it just sounds like you need to be so multifaceted in order
yeah,
to really make it work and keep the engine going. I mean, especially for years. I
yeah.
mean, hopefully, does it feel like by season 7 that you have a library to choose from of, items and a whole bunch of different stuff?
Yes, so we have what we
Until
call
they say you're going to California, right? And you need to do it all differently.
there was that, and we had to
Yeah.
research that,
Right.
and that was a different, more kind of traditional mid-century.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
So, not so much in a hip, cool look.
Yeah. Like there's a New York swanky version, and then there's, sort of the lighter, a bit airier California feel. Yeah.
Or heavier, depending
Yeah.
on,
Yeah, I guess when you think about Megan's layered sort of feeling to
yeah,
it.
Megan's
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very layered.
Yeah.
And the funny story is like the fireplace, the Malm
Oh,
fireplace.
sure.
that's in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So I found one at a friend's house that he couldn't stand and want to get rid of in Laurel Canyon.
Can I have one of those friends?
And I was like, it's good, but it's not the right shape. I need something that goes straight up and yours
Yeah.
angles, right? I found the perfect one on Etsy, had it packed up and shipped, and it got damaged. So weirdly, it was the same color. And I merged them together. So I bought
Took
his.
the piping.
I got his base.
Sure.
Their piping was fine, but the base got crushed
Oh, wow.
because it's cast iron. And
Yeah.
in shipping, it shifted on the pallet. So I married them together, and that's was in
Wow.
the apartment.
And
then,
luckily they were the same color. Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess
oh my
you
God, yeah.
could have gotten one to paint one, but
And you
still,
can't. I mean, like you can and can't at the same time because there's a specific kind of, it's the harvest gold, but there's a little feathering of brown.
sure.
So when you look at the real ones, they have a little
Oh yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
burnish.
I
couldn't
really
get rid of that.
wanted to put one in I have like a 3-season porch,
Uh-huh.
and I was doing all the research to install one. The smaller one was called the Fire Duke, I believe. It was even like a smaller diameter. But then I realized there's a whole bunch of rules about how far away from the wall it has to be. And
Right.
everything. There's some functional stuff that you got to consider that I didn't have the
Well,
the
not
clearance
only,
for.
so buying the one from Laurel Canyon also
Yeah.
gave me the fire logs that I didn't
Yeah.
get the original one.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
The
Yep.
screen. So, I mean, like it basically created the entire package.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
you-
got
you
a
really
real
needed
Laurel
both,
Canyon one.
Yeah. Wow. That's any other specific sort of, item by item stories that you remember being
Well, in
being
Don's
interesting?
apartment, the pendant light fixture.
Okay.
That came out of, yes, that came out of a house in Arcadia that was being torn down.
Oh, wow.
And they basically almost gave it away.
Sure.
But we didn't realize how amazing it was till we plugged it in. Because when it's not plugged in, you just, the colors aren't as vibrant. But
Sure.
once it's lit, it's just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
And the intercom also came from that house. So, finding things, hardware.
Yeah.
In California, the set decorator doesn't do hardware, the art department does, but in New York, the set decorator does hardware.
Wow.
So I was originally trained by Leslie Pope. She was my mentor. And she was the decorator on Catch Me If You Can. I was more of her assistant. But that movie, just an aside, we had about 175 sets in that movie, but I think only about 75 of them are on screen. So many of them were cut. Yeah.
Wow. Think about that. More than or a majority of the sets were cut and never even on screen compared to
we had a Polaroid office where I found on eBay Polaroid cameras from every year to put on a shelf, and it was this really cool office, but it didn't make it. There was a hobby shop where Leo goes in and buys the Pan Am airplanes.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. That's an iconic scene with the planes in the tub.
Right.
I love
the hobby
that
shop
one.
was cut. And it's just all timing,
Right. And I'm sure to fill a hobby shop, I mean, all the little items that probably need to be in there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But and that's what happens. Yeah. And it's just TV's different.
I was gonna ask, is there any big differences specifically between movies and TV?
You generally see every set that's written about.
Okay.
That you do on TV. Whereas in features, you don't really know until they edit it, you really don't know what's gonna make it. And like in Catch Me If You Can, the hotel room with Jennifer Garner.
Yeah.
We didn't realize it was gonna be as shown as it was. And we did many hotel rooms, and that was in the Ambassador Hotel.
Okay.
Where Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It has since been torn down. But there was a bungalow that we dressed, and I don't know if that made it on screen, but there was really no stage work in Catch Me If You Can. It was predominantly all locations.
Like on location? Got it.
Dressed. Yeah.
Wow. Is one more challenging than the other in general in the industry, like being on location and having to versus?
I think so. I think stage work is better.
Okay.
A little easier.
Yeah, I guess there's things you can really move around quite frankly.
Wall and hang a wall sconce. When you get to a location, if there's no sconce there, it's tricky. So you may have to put a floor lamp, or something else. Lighting is very important. Practical lights are very important for sets, especially for period projects, just to help the director of photography. Otherwise, it becomes very flat. And it's hard sometimes for them to come in and get their lighting in. Yeah. So they rely on practical fixtures.
Real fixtures. Wow. That's so interesting. What a world. I feel like we learned so much just briefly. So thank you so much, for a lot of the descriptions here. I did want to ask about one specific item going back to that for Mad Men, just because I'm a big fan of these. And that was the Don's, I believe it's called the Pulaski Contour. Or oceanic piece that was in his office. Yes. Any background on that you particularly remember, or was it just kind of a cool piece?
It was a cool piece that was a great size.
Yeah.
Sure, it's residential.
Yep.
In an aspect, but it had so much dimension in it that I asked if I could put that in because I just liked the sculptural aspect of it, and it was just kind of different, and that's pretty much
Yeah,
Why?
I did. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, or maybe I've been part of too many startups as well myself. But I do, because of some of the residential feel of a couple of the pieces of furniture that went
Yes.
into that new office, the Sterling Cooper Draper Price office. Was that on purpose? Like, hey, we're scrappy and we're bringing furniture from home and we got this fancy new office, but we're going to make it our own kind of thing.
Right. Well, Harry's office,
Yeah.
Matthew requested French provincial.
Okay.
So I did a board and showed him like what we could do in there. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So he was kind of a little stodgy and,
Yeah. It
some
makes sense.
had money.
Sure.
So he had a little bit of money
Yeah.
and Pete
Roger.
Campbell had money. When we got to season 6 and we had the new offices, Matthew requested a high back tufted leather desk chair for Pete Campbell's office. Wanted him to feel a little more of an executive.
Sure. I feel like those new offices starting in season 4, right? I mean, it's really a good time for a new set decorator to come in. I don't know if that was on purpose or how it worked, but
I feel very lucky.
yeah, sure.
But I also, as I mentioned to you in an email, my dad was in advertising.
Yeah.
And so I remember being 3 years old in 1964, going to his office. I have a photograph of myself sitting in a shell chair.
Cool.
In
Yeah.
his office, but also the bright colors, the white floors, a lot of light. So, the fluorescent fixtures, there was just a lot of brightness. Then I remember in the early 70s, he was freelancing in an office and it felt a little gloomier. It was older furniture.
Well, that's an insight. I mean, just taking from that personal experience that you don't really have unless you've really lived it. I mean, and got to witness that.
Well, also, just keeping in mind too, Herman Miller was commercial furniture.
Right. Totally.
So, and residential, but a lot of institutions
at that time,
too, had a lot of Herman Miller furniture. So in these like architectural record books, there's in the middle of like Kansas or this is the Henry Holt office. Okay. I don't know if you can see this style of chair. So these books were incredibly helpful, like, insurance offices with David Wakefield furniture, which cracked me up, And that was something too. So Haywood Wakefield, West Coast. And so Matthew made sure that we did not have any Haywood Wakefield furniture in any of the New York sets.
I could see that. Is there any other? So I was gonna say, I was curious if you ever used, because our podcast is named after the Kent Coffee line of furniture, the Perspecta line, and I was gonna ask if you ever used any, and then I was watching Catch Me If You Can yesterday, and I spotted one at the scene when he's got to split up from his family and they're making the decision on who's he's gonna go with. A heart-wrenching scene for Leo's character, but there it is, Kent Coffee Perspecta, right in the center of the screen. I couldn't believe it. Do you remember if you used that for anything else by chance in Mad Men or otherwise?
You have to remember, we wrapped in 2014.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
And so, and there were so many sets, I can't honestly tell you.
Yeah.
I would have to revisit every one myself.
I might just have to do that. Well.
I think what happens is, much like human nature, if there's trauma or drama, you remember those sets more than others that went smoothly.
Yeah. I mean, it does bring up another question I was curious about. So mid-century modern was really new to an extent back then, or at least maybe, new amongst some groups of people, right? If you think about residential, You
Right.
think about just the flow of furniture, and maybe there's, people would get a specific style, more colonial or provincial
Yes.
furniture from their
Yes.
families and get it passed down,
Yes.
right? That has to be all organic. I was curious about how you go about mixing some of those styles, right? So Don and Megan's apartment, they probably went out and they furnished it and they spent a lot of money on it, and
Right.
it could all be modern for that
Right.
time
Now,
period.
during that time, because my mom used to go to Bloomingdale's a
Sure.
lot, there was a floor that was all furniture.
Okay.
And in my mind, Megan used the Bloomingdale's
Right.
interior decorator to help her furnish her apartment. And I kind of feel it was something similar with Roger's office in
Yeah.
season 4, that his wife was very involved,
Okay.
that in my mind, she somehow, the Nessa lamp that you brought up, like
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
saw it at the Museum of Modern Art in my mind
Yeah.
and loved the mushroom vibe to it,
Yeah.
and how, it had that organic vibe
Absolutely. Yeah. And
to
it
it.
goes so well with the tulip tables and the stools in there.
Exactly.
And DC couldn't join us today. Unfortunately, he has a leak at his house. He's trying to figure
Ooh.
out, but he's got 2 Corona chairs, and I know
Oh,
that
no
he would,
kidding.
he really loves that style. And he was the one, I think, who even pointed out to me that style, and
Yeah,
design.
1962.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Because I had to be careful as
Yeah.
best as I could with what year things came out in, like the
Yeah, I'm
arc
sure.
lamp.
Especially the really notable pieces that are there,
Yes.
I would assume, yeah.
Yep. And also, mixing the Herman Miller and the Knoll.
Yeah.
In season 6, when we moved Roger upstairs and we redid his office and we got the Knoll partner's desk.
Okay.
And me personally, I always wanted one. So I bought
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
on the show at the end, and that's my dining table now.
Oh, cool.
And I bought the Creative Lounge chairs, which I found at NoHo Modern in Los Angeles, the 6 of them, and they have a date on the bottom from May 4th, 1968.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 1964 on the
64.
bottom.
Got it.
Yep. Because 1968 would not be good for
Yeah,
1964.
that'd be too
No,
late.
it was 1964 for sure. And I was like, oh my God, it was meant to be, like they were made for that. So every year we went up a year.
Yeah.
So that by the time
Get
we
1 or 2
did it,
new pieces in there that started that year very notably. Got it.
correct. Well, what's interesting is if you start to look at when I worked on a movie in 1998 called Chill Factor, not period. We went to an auction at the University of South Carolina, auctioned off some pieces, and I found a Noguchi side table for $5.
Oh,
I found a
$5.
Florence Knowles settee for $35.
Incredible.
The Noguchi table had razor lines all around it, so it's possible that it was used in a dorm for something,
Okay.
but there was a lot of Herman Miller Knoll furniture in the universities that ended up in the dorms because it aged out from what they wanted.
Little did they know
When my
it was going
father
to come
worked
back
at
in.
Avon
Yeah.
Cosmetics, and he was there from the early 80s to actually the late 70s to the early 90s.
Yeah.
That's 17 years. His office was very packed. A lot of books that made the shelves bow. People would walk by and laugh, like, when is that going to fall? His desk chair was a Pollock chair. It gave him carpal tunnel. Be careful. It gave him carpal tunnel.
Okay.
He
So
didn't know
interesting.
what was happening because carpal tunnel was new
Yeah.
then. Oh, something to kind of point out too.
Yeah, sure.
Recessed lighting. People have written in saying that recessed lighting did not exist then. Well, it goes back to the 30s.
Okay, so it
Look
did.
in different books and just kind of pointing out in this architecture book, you can see the recessed lighting.
Oh yeah, sure can.
There, that's 1960.
Yeah. I mean, look, if there's anything else you want to defend like that,
it's just like
we're full on interested.
Because I started reading some of the blogs.
I bet.
Back when I was working on it, and
yeah,
there was, someone, I think she was 24, and talking about how could they use like a 1970s kitchen set in Roger Sterling's office, and I'm like, 1955 Saarinen.
right.
I don't know how else to hold your hand and take you to research,
right. Exactly.
Not a kitchen set. And
yeah. That's funny. Look, I think that's really too it's part of what we're doing, like I said earlier, but we want people to know, and that's particularly why too we bring the visuals up on YouTube, because we want people to know when things started and start to just be able to grasp some of that. I mean, there is so,
Right.
I mean, you could speak to it more than anybody because it was
I think
your
all
role. There's so much depth. There's so
right.
much
A
depth.
lot of decorators could, especially when you start, working on a period show, what we tend to do is we buy Sears catalogs from that time period.
Cool.
And magazines, and what was interesting is seeing that, like blow up furniture and blow up pillows that we think are really cool. There was a whole spread in 1967 in a House Beautiful magazine.
Wow.
And, I noticed that someone is doing blow up sofas again on a metal frame, which is great. It's easy to move.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
waterproof. And it's pretty comfortable.
Sure.
But, it's been done.
Right. It's not new.
Right.
yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it must be incredible to have really such a library of different points in time. I mean, it must be the way you see the world a bit.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. But I've always been obsessed with books.
Yeah.
And, my parents had a lot of books. My first research, I was obsessed as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
With the JFK assassination.
Sure.
And Lincoln's assassination.
Yeah.
I would look at those books all the time, and I don't know why. And then my father started doing homemade movies with a 16 millimeter camera. He would make little commercials.
Yeah.
And he was doing books on Hollywood. And I started looking at like the sets and how things are done, like the Gone with the Wind. The fact that in Gone with the Wind, for the burning of Atlanta, they burned down the King Kong set. And if you really look at it, you see the giant King Kong doors being burned in the background.
Wow.
They're riding by in the carriage.
Sure.
And so, interesting recycling even then.
Yeah.
We recycle all the time. I mean, like I was saying, we didn't have a lot of money on Mad Men. So sometimes I would reupholster a sofa. So in Pete's office, he had an orange sofa in season 4 where he had the column in his room.
Yep.
I reupholstered that into purple and put it into Ken Cosgrove's office a couple of seasons later.
And upholstery is usually part of the production team, right? Is that correct? You don't have to go out to somebody else. And
I may show Matthew or Dan, like, what do you think of these colors?
Yeah. But I mean, the upholstery itself, that's something that you can have done.
I usually would go
set.
to a union prop house to have it done.
Got it.
Because they could do it quicker. Because as you know, when you try to get things upholstered or reupholstered, it can take a long time. And
I think it is number one in the industry. And I engage and we talk to a lot of different folks, a lot of them who have their own, mid-century modern shops and resellers. I think upholstery is probably the most difficult thing to an extent right now. It's very much so in demand and it's very expensive.
Yes.
And to do it accurately, especially on like an Eames Lounge or something, mine has a bunch of cat scratches. So at some point I'll get it done, but to do it right, it's tough.
Yeah. And you just have to get some leather conditioner.
Oh yeah.
And that'll make it really awesome, and
okay, good.
Make the leather happy.
I love it. There's just a ton that you've gone through. I'm so just impressed at the machine that happens behind the scenes, and it make you got to say you make it look so seamless. I mean, to go for a period piece to go scene to scene and capture both the characters' personalities as well as the continuity of what's going on. I mean,
Right. And
it's
don't
amazing.
forget too, like I had a department, so I had help and I had
Yeah, sure,
an
certainly.
awesome buyer named Rhonda Elliott who
Okay.
was with me the entire time.
Wow.
And so she would shop while I was in meetings and we would text back and forth. Like I would text her notes like this is coming up, see if you see anything on your travels. Like, we
Got it.
need a working cigarette machine. We
Yeah.
need
That's going to take a beating, apparently.
right, candy machine.
Yeah.
And I found one on eBay that had to get shipped in.
Wow.
Accidentally, it was FedExed overnight
Okay.
as opposed to ground.
Okay.
But in the grand scheme of things, as I said to the producer later on, it was worth it
Yeah.
because I paid so much less money for a working candy machine that was vintage
Yeah.
that made up for it in the shipping. I mean, like, you have to
got to rationalize it. No, I
right.
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Where's that all stored?
Well, we had a gold room is what we call it, where we
Okay.
keep a lot of our furniture and things. And then we had extra warehouse space. So we would put swing sets that weren't being used there, but everything got auctioned off.
Yeah. I've seen some of those auctions. I maybe not so sure about some of the larger pieces, but some of the smaller pieces, maybe it's like one or two websites, it seems like, that do a lot of those auctions.
There was one that was sanctioned by Lionsgate.
Okay.
Our property master, Ellen Freund, worked with them and helped them catalog and authenticate a lot of things. And
yeah. I did. There's a couple specific items, barware being one of them, coming full circle, but also lighters, ashtrays. Like, it's so interesting. Greg and I were talking about this. You don't really see them in residential, especially. I'm really fascinated by table lighters.
yes,
And that was so common, and now it's something that we don't even really look at that much today.
right.
Were there any specific brands or trends that you were going after with regards to
That was an
those kind of
overlap with
items?
the prop department. So
Okay.
Ellen Freund sometimes would, she loved also shopping. And
Yeah.
she's the one who actually turned me on to Etsy,
Sure.
vintage, because
Yeah.
eBay is awesome.
Yeah.
But Etsy was like a whole new, like, oh my
Bit
God.
more curation going on, I would say. Yeah.
So we would kind of compare notes like, I found this, great, because I have this. If an actor is using a lighter, she would
That's
take care of that.
Is that the
for sure.
line between set and prop, as if something is actually in use?
Yes, but also, she helped find some glassware for Don's apartment, like the frosted yellow that we put in the kitchen. And then she helped with like pots and pans that Catherine Holmgren.
Yeah. I spotted those. I love those Catherine Holm
she
pieces.
grew up with a lot of that. And sometimes she would bring in stuff from her parents' house, just to use.
Yeah.
One day we needed a particular strainer. I happen to have that, the Miro strainer with little feet, that looks like a helmet.
Yep.
And I think I had to bring that in a couple of times. Like working percolators, phones. You had brought up the phones.
Certain things have to really operate. Yeah, especially some of the phones. I had read in one of the interviews that you've had that there was a specific collector, right, or expert.
Yes, his name is Richard Rose.
Cool.
I think he's in Minnesota, and this was a hobby of his. And we found our set deck coordinator Helga found him on eBay we
That
just
must
kept
feel so
asking
good
him.
to just be like, oh my gosh, we need 50 phones. And I found a guy who's got
Well, so
50 phones ready to go, like of
what we
the
did is
period.
we said, how many phones do you have with the multi-lines? And I
Right.
think he said, I can get you 5. And I said, great, let's start with that. And then I said, if I need more, can you tell me when you get them in? And we'll just keep buying them from you. I said, next season, we may need more. So he kind of started to collect them on the hiatus.
Purposefully,
and then
sure.
we needed a secretary, like a big multi-line.
Oh yeah,
That had, like,
that's a fun scene.
20 lines on it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that, I wish I had kept. It was beautiful. I mean, that belonged in a museum.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when
Much like-
Peggy Joan's showing Peggy around and she's
Yes.
introducing her to the operators. Yeah. What a
that.
fun scene.
So that is from the pilot, I think. And Rena D'Angelo decorated the pilot in New York. So
oh yeah, that might have been
all
that
of that
early.
was
Yeah.
shot in New York. And then it went to Los Angeles when the series was purchased.
That's even a whole nother
there were 3
exchange,
decorators.
Wow. Are there specific like how does ownership work with some of these props? Is that primarily owned by, once it's done, it's owned by Lionsgate and then they go and auction it off?
Yes.
Wow. It seems like you had the opportunity to purchase some things at some point.
I had to put in a request at the end of the series of what I wanted and hope that they would approve it.
Wow. So interesting. I think to really cap us off here, and thank you so much for joining. There's 2 other things. One I want to elaborate on. We talked about a little bit earlier, but are there any actors that you do feel are particularly passionate about this style that, we could try to talk to one day?
Possibly John Slattery. I will get into trouble, but I snuck out to him his desk lamp from season 6.
Oh, cool. We won't tell.
But I couldn't tell you if that's his look.
Sure.
I know that Elizabeth Moss grew up at times going to David Weedman's gallery in Los Angeles.
Okay.
When she was a kid.
Sure.
I was able to, through a prop house, get her a David Weedman print that was in her office.
Very cool.
Honestly, I don't know what actors' passions are.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Trust me. We're probably not quite at the point of being big enough to call everybody's agent and see if they want to, come on for any sort of press tours. But I do think I've seen John Hamm do. There's a music video that he's in with a band called that's the Eels, right, Greg? If I remember
Eels.
correctly. Yeah, Eels.
Exactly.
It's cool. You should. I'll send it to you. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but so he's sitting down. He puts headphones on. It seems like he's connected to a hi-fi stereo system, and it's all mid-century modern furniture. And whether that's one of his passions or not, or he's just kind of known for being around the style.
I know.
Right?
I think that's probably more like it.
It's probably more likely. Somebody proceeds to like a thief proceeds to come in and steal all the fancy furniture and bring it out the window. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So
and he's
that
like
one
a huge fan of that band.
Right.
Like they're friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So I was hoping maybe, because actually, so in the poster behind me, I was actually able to go and meet with Milton Glaser at the time.
That's great.
I went to his, because I work in New York City. So I went to his studio. I think it's on 33rd Street.
Okay.
And I met him. That was many, many years ago when he was still alive. And he was like, "Where did you get this poster? Like, I don't even have one of these." That was kind of funny. I was like, "Yeah, I'll give it to you. Like, you're the guy." And then I saw Matthew Weiner speak at a event, and I brought this big poster tube, and I got some questions about it. And I was like, "Look, I'm just gonna go up to him after. I just want him to sign it." So I have 2 signatures. And I'd love to get John Hamm's one day. So that was part of the beginnings of this podcast was, hey, is there a way to talk to John Hamm maybe at some point? Have him come on over to New Jersey and sign my poster. Maybe I'll go meet him somewhere. But But that's definitely part of the goal. I mean, Mad Men was so influential to me in my just love of this design style. So I'm sure I speak for many people. And thank you for many people as well for that.
One thing to look at
Yeah.
is Pushpin Studios from back then.
Okay.
We also had a Seymour Schwast poster in Roger's office of season 6. So in the beginning of season 6, the first episode, they're in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And Don is reading Dante's Inferno at the beach.
Yep.
If you look at the last episode in Roger's office, the Seymour Schwast poster of Dante's Inferno, the end place.
I don't think I realized that. Very cool.
It was a fluke.
Yeah.
But I like to say I was quoted in Time magazine, I think. I like to see it say it's a bookend, like bookends, the beginning and the end of that season with Dante's Inferno.
I love it. What would you say when maybe in Mad Men or even in Catch Me If You Can, maybe in more of the period pieces, right? When you're outfitting a character with mid-century modern design versus, either, more colonial or provincial or whatever, some of the other styles, what do you think that signifies about that character?
To put it into Matthew Weiner's mind, we had to be very careful, especially with mid-century furniture.
Yeah.
His comment was, when I ask for a horse, I want horse, not a zebra. So to make it not so extreme that it's too much.
Too much. Yeah, it takes up too much of a presence, I'm sure. Yeah.
I would say for back then, and just knowing what I grew up with, there's furniture that kind of like a Sears catalog had lounge chairs that, you see even today people are making that you could buy it at Target.
Sure. Yeah.
I found one 25 years ago for $29 in a thrift store in LA. I still have it, and it's walnut,
Yeah.
I think
it was accessible. There was a sort of the mass modern. Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of that, especially American-made furniture of the mid-century style, was affordable for people, and it was light in weight and easy and hip. I mean, I'm thinking of like friends' parents' houses that had it, and it was like a newness of just that period. Yeah. And my godparents had a lot of very amazing mid-century furniture that they bought new. And then over the years, they would add like Victorian.
Sure.
Like it kind of evolved. Because I think like in my parents' mind, especially my mother, it became cheap.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
My parents collected primitive American furniture and shaker. Yep. And they got away from mid-century.
Yeah.
I have their original dining table, and it's Bruno Matheson.
Okay.
My mother hated it. It sat out on our porch, which wasn't heated, and so it has a little bit of mold on the legs.
Sure.
But I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it could fold down to like 8 inches, but you could open it all the way up and it would seat 10 people or more.
Yeah.
And I have that in a room where it's kind of like a library room. So it's like a research table.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think it means, the design style, the more that people are learning about it and figuring out where it fits really in their life and in their rooms, I think it has a tendency to mean a lot of different things to different folks, right?
I would say nothing is correct or wrong.
Yeah.
It's what you feel happy about, and if it's like, I have some Target pieces.
Sure.
I think the oldest piece of furniture I have, which is primitive American, is from the late 1700s. and it's a
Wow.
hutch cabinet made out of chestnut, and it's with a Percival Laufer coffee table.
Yeah. These days, you're gonna
Yeah,
mix and match,
yeah,
right? I mean, I think we've probably reached a point in interior design and probably, in set decoration to an extent for contemporary, shows where that's kind of the reality.
yeah,
And you have to mix and things are eclectic. And if you were to go too far into one style, it would kind of seem ingenuine to an extent.
yeah, it
Yeah.
would.
That's what a
Yeah, I
fine
think
line to
in a
have to
weird
deal
way,
with.
you're probably right. It would
Yeah.
feel forced, but some people like that. They like the way that that page of Restoration Hardware looked,
Yeah.
and they want that page,
Yeah.
and that's fine. That's why Restoration Hardware does that, kind of that magazine,
Right.
you know.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense.
But some people like, I think you and me, we like the hunt. We like to,
That's a great ending point because I think a lot of people feel that way and not everybody always realizes it. I love the hunt.
yeah,
It is really sometimes you got to remember that you like it more than the purchase.
right. Right. And I see every job, contemporary or period, as like, I call it the archaeological dig of
Mm,
figuring out what it is, like going into a character. And sometimes I make it up myself,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
I see this person, like lived here and they may have collected that.
They did
And
that. Yeah. I mean, I think that perfectly, good ending spot. Perfectly encapsulate your type of role and the thought and everything that you put into it in order to create really these masterpieces. So, Claudette, thank you so much for the
thank you
time.
very much.
We really
Really appreciate
appreciate
both
it.
of you.
Yeah, totally. First off, I want to say a sincere thank you to everybody who has listened, rated, and subscribed to The Perspecta across all platforms. The kind messages and feedback shared truly keep us going on this passion project. I also want to give a shout out to the team at New Jersey's own Flux Modern in Asbury Park, who helped us to make the connection with Claudette. I hope you learned not only about some of the furniture and smalls featured in Mad Men, but also have a newfound appreciation for the coordination it takes to set a scene, especially in period films and television. Maybe, just maybe, if you continue to support us, we'll have to call up Claudette to design a set for our design-focused talk show, primed for the big screen. Let's dream big together. Until the next mid-century.